It's really a good time to be a Spider-Man fan. For the first time we got 3 Spider-Man movies in 3 sequential years, and they are all great. Servus Freunde, my name is Jimmy Cage and Spider-Man Far From Home follows a perfect path after the behemoth that was or is Avengers Endgame. I'm not saying the film itself is perfect, what I mean is that the direction they take the character, story and overall theme and ideas of the movie is very clever and in certain fields extremely self-referential and meta. Now this review will be mostly spoiler free, but I honestly don't see that much worth in just throwing out some super generic vague buzzwords about the movie. I feel like I've done that in the past with some of these big pop culture blockbusters, and just a few days after the film has come out, those reviews are already pretty useless. In my opinion, today's spoiler culture or spoiler phobia culture has become so extreme that it's now considered a crime to talk about the tiniest things that may take away some of the film's most basic surprises. So again, this review won't include major spoilers, but I will talk about some of the film's directions. If you don't want to know anything, you shouldn't have clicked in the first place. You heard my introduction, I think after Homecoming and the masterpiece Into the Spider-Verse, this one is another winner and therefore the film comes very recommended. So let's get into it. Spider-Man Far From Home, once again directed by Jon Watts, is the second entry in the third Spider-Man movie series, which might already be regarded as the best Spider-Man series. I still put Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2 above all other live-action movies, and just under Into the Spider-Verse, but I think both Homecoming and Far From Home are better than the first Raimi movie, better than the third and also better than the 2 amazing Spider-Man movies. And if the next one will keep this high level, we are really talking. And to jump right to the end, Far From Home easily has one of the most impactful end credit scenes in the entire MCU, and it really makes you wish the third film would arrive already tomorrow. It's also a testament not only to our modern times, but also to the superhero comic narrative and the success of the MCU, that these movies aren't any longer just some standalone stories, they are all embedded in this ongoing super machinery, and I think they did a pretty terrific job with that. In many regards, where the movie picks up, what it puts its main character through and where it ended and how it built anticipation for the next entries. Far From Home is the 23rd film of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and also the final movie in what is called Phase 3 of the MCU. Thankfully, it isn't just another big effect-heavy fight for the survival of our species, but a clever twist on the whole big budget spectacle concept. To send Peter Parker on a field trip to Europe after the world-changing events of Infinity War and Endgame is a wonderful premise. It is both a welcome palate cleanser and perfectly fitting the character of Spider-Man. With him, the personal struggle, all his problems at school and in his love life were always as important as him fighting the weekly bad guy. And right now, the only thing he wanna do is escape. Not even take his costume with him and instead try to come up with a good plan to confess his growing feelings to MJ. Usually you get your best Spider-Man material if nothing works out the way he planned, if everything is working against him. That's one of the reasons why I still think Spider-Man 2 is such a wonderful film. And of course his trip to Europe isn't different, and when his class just arrived in Venice, the city gets attacked by a huge water monster, which is of course very fitting for that particular city. As it turns out, this creature is one of the so-called elementals. But thankfully this time Spider-Man isn't completely alone. As you can see on this beautiful, just kidding, god-awful official poster, he has company in Nick Fury and the mysterious new superhero Mysterio, played by Jake Gyllenhaal. Far From Home is about Peter Parker trying to find his place in a world that just lost its superhero leader Iron Man. This is one of the MCU's gifts and challenges. In the past you came up with a good idea for your sequel. Of course you had the previous movie or previous movies, all the stuff that happened there, but it was more or less a very open playground still. But now you have all the stuff, all the stories, characters and also the emotional bonds from the entire series. And you can use that, build on it, spin it, continue the threads, and if you're good, make the best out of it for your main character. Make your specific hero react to what happened, and in doing that work out their specific characteristics. As they do in the comics since forever. The MCU doesn't always move in those big, important steps some people make it out to do, but it still moves and evolves, and the two new Spider-Man films are good examples where that really works. An important aspect of Homecoming was the relationship between Tony Stark and Peter Parker, and the groundwork for that was already established in Civil War. And the gap that the death of Tony leaves behind for the world and for Peter is also at the core of Far From Home. In a way, it is kind of this version's substitute for the Uncle Ben character. Different, but also crucial in Peter's development and his responsibility towards himself, his family, his friends, and of course all the people that are in need of help. Homecoming can be criticized for a minor lack of this archetypical Spider-Man aspect, Peter's conflict and his responsibility. Far From Home has more of that, while also perfectly continuing the lighter, more humorous high school approach. Especially the first half plays very much like a light-hearted, funny teen road trip. The stuff that worked in the first film works again. The banter between Peter and his best friend Ned is funny and very relatable, and Zendaya's character, who was revealed to be this version's MJ at the end of Homecoming, has a bigger part in the second one, and her and Tom Holland's chemistry is amazing. And speaking about Tom Holland, well, what should I say? He has all the comedic chops, all the likability, and this time around he's even more vulnerable than before. Tony Revolori as the douchebag Flash Thompson, who is now into live streaming each and every detail from their trip. Jon Favreau as the lovable, a bit awkward Happy Hogan. Marissa Tomei as the sunshine that is Aunt May. Sam Jackson as Nick Fury and Kobe Smulders as Maria Hill are all adding their little charms to the film. A definite comedic highlight were Martin Starr and JB Smoove as their school teachers who try to manage the trip as best as they can. Especially Martin Starr had some great laughs. But to be honest, also one or two little misfires. In general, the pacing of the first half could have been a little bit better. It's rather slow and it takes some time for the movie to really change gears. But it definitely does, and the second half is where the film really shows its clever nature. Now, if you're afraid of getting too much information, skip the rest of the review and just watch the movie. What I liked most about Spider-Man Far From Home is the way it plays with the concept of big spectacle movies and with the notion of storytelling and filmmaking. It is one of those films that's very blatantly about the concept of filmmaking without being literally about it. In a kindred way as Inception is also about filmmaking, as it is about a group of people who are creating dreams. Far From Home feels very relevant and of the times right now. It cleverly incorporates elements like total surveillance, drone attacks, media coverage and big spectacle into its narrative, and all of that under the mantle of this hugely entertaining Spider-Man summer blockbuster. Yet it's not as smooth and as breathtaking as I hoped it would be. As I already mentioned, the pacing could have been better, and I also think it kind of suffers from that typical MCU aesthetic. There are exceptions, but many MCU movies do miss a strong visual note, and Far From Home falls into that mold of just rather generic cinematography and editing. And there's nothing bad about it, but also nothing really special. There are a few sequences though that are very different, but they too don't make your head spin around as much as they want to, I think. Now, if you want to be very positive, you might say it's all fitting the film's overall idea, but I don't give them that. Also, the action is nice, but for the most part nothing that really wowed me. The same goes for the music. Apart from one moment towards the end, the film wasn't able to give me those hard emotional punches that I got from my two favorites, Into the Spider-Verse and Spider-Man 2. I think overall I like the idea and the direction the film went, more than the actual movie, if that makes any sense. It's not that the execution didn't deliver, but it wasn't completely there for me. But again, this is complaining on a very high level. The movie is still pretty damn good and I highly recommend it. If you're a fan of Spider-Man, I can't imagine that you won't like it. So in German I'd say, Spider-Man Far From Home ist nicht nur ein großartiger Folgefilm nach Endgame, der gekonnt weiterführt, was Homecoming begonnen hat und was seitdem weiter passiert ist, sondern auch ein cleverer Metafilm über Spektakelkino an sich. Außerdem ist er unglaublich witzig und charmant. I give Spider-Man Far From Home 8 out of 10. It's more like 7.8, but I don't do that. Alright, that's it. Like always, comment below and let me know what you think about Spider-Man Far From Home. You can hit me up on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram simply at TheJimmyCage. And if you enjoyed this episode, please give me a thumbs up, share, subscribe, whatever you like. And make sure you hit that bell for all I have to tell.